Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. Thank you so much for joining us here today as we watch the Hunter Burton Memorial Lorcana Championship. This was the second annual event, the 11th year for the Hunter Burton Memorial itself, and we are so thankful that 20 Lore Pro was invited back for this year's tournament. This year we had over 70 competitors compete in the Lorcana tournament, along with many side events and freebies that were raffled and given out all throughout the day. We want to thank our Enchanted Level sponsors Cloud Collectibles, Random Encounter Games, The Card Haven, Pixelborn, Mothership Books and Games, and Pixel Haven. Thanks to them and many within the community, we were able to raise over $7,500 to support 988, the U.S. National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are experiencing suicidal ideation or are going through a mental health crisis, reach out to 988. There's support available 24/7, and there are professionals who want to help you find the right resources that you need. Again, this is 20 Lore Pro, and I'm Sir Ashtown, and thank you so much for joining us. We also want to thank Miguel over at Diamond Ink Apparel for doing the beautiful artwork on the Lorcana Championship playmats that you see before you on the tournament screen. If you want to get yours non-serialized, you can head on over to 20lore.pro to our merch section. Also, there will be a link in the description to get yours today. We want to thank GFQ for printing those playmats and for being a long-time partner alongside 20 Lore Pro. Thank you, GFQ Underground, for printing those mats. And here we are going on to the next round.
Hello, welcome back to the Hunter Burton Memorial Open Lorcana Championship, brought to you by 20 Lore Pro. We're in the last round of Swiss, leading into top 8. Loaf, how's it going?
It's going good. I just casted my first match
You're
last round.
You're not supposed to say that.
So now we're going into the second one.
So you've been doing this for years.
Years. I'm an accomplished caster. But yeah, we're going into round 7, last round of the Swiss. It's actually a pretty tight field out there. I mean, even Zan is 4-2 world's competitor.
Yeah.
And, you know, even this 68-man tournament out in Hurst, Texas is putting up
it's sweaty.
some competition. Yeah.
Hot outside, it's hot in here.
Yeah, the sun has really been giving us the runaround.
Yeah. I think I don't think there was as much blue steel here today as I thought. There's still a lot, but I think everybody was either playing it or had a very solid game plan for it. Now whether you actually have a solid game plan for it is, to be determined, but some of the green yellow aggro decks with a bunch of 4 willpower guys that come out real fast, go wide. Seems like that's been a pretty good strategy against blue steel, and I think we might have that on camera this round.
Yeah, I believe one of the matches is Zach here from Texas, Waco. He's playing the hyper aggro lemon lime.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of these decks, I think the bar is, as you said at that. Can you deal with a 3/3 for 3 that comes out on turn 1 in the form of Belle? Because she can challenge, she can sing, and that's really all you need to get you through to the late game. Then you just start playing Tamatoa 1, Tamatoa 2, and
if they don't have the turn 1 Belle, there's a lot of decks that can just kind of get out of hand for the blue steel deck. They don't really have any catch up mechanics. Without the Belle, they can't really do anything. Especially if they don't have. I mean, if they have Oswald on too, that doesn't really help catch you up as far as board control. Turn 3, Workshop or Fishbone.
Right.
But, turn 4 Flavor Sham, and then green yellows to 15 lore.
Yeah, a lot of the items don't interact themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what the Bell Steel package is for. It's to interact with the board until your items get to the point where you convert them using Tamatoa and Lucky Dime into the lore that pushes you to the victory.
All right. Well, here we go. We're taking a look at Lucksack versus Joe In. And looks like it's a green-yellow mirror match. Looks like they're pretty much on the same deck. There may be a few differences and nuances between the lists, but this is kind of the new set 7 aggro deck, the Lady and the Tramp themed. A lot of 1-drops with 4 willpower. You've got Lady that can come down on turn 1. Just a 1/2, the quest for 1, but if Tramp is in play, quest for 2. And then Tramp is sweet. There's a couple of them in the deck, but the one that costs 2 that can cost 1 less if you have a Lady in play, and it quests for, I think it just quests for 1, but then it pumps up an attack for target character for equal number of other characters you have in play. So it lets one of your 04s or even Daisy Duck get in there and then get a couple damage counters on it, and it's just a nice curve into like a turn 4 Rapunzel to refuel your hand. Yeah, the deck is sweet. I've been like enjoying watching it.
Yeah, we saw Joe play last round on stream actually, and as you pointed out, he's got a lot of big bodies. He's got Daisy Duck with 4 willpower. He's got Nala. He's got Little John, and he does have that Rapunzel to eventually refill his hand. And actually, on Zach's side of the field, we see, I believe this is Prince Philip, the 05 bodyguard from the new set.
I think it is. See if we can take a look at that. And then there's Joe playing the Tramp. It costs 7, but it costs 1 less for each character you have in play. Then when it comes into play, you draw cards equal to the number of characters you have in play, and then you discard that many cards. And quest for 2, it's a 2/6. Nice stats. You usually get it down for pretty cheap. Joe got a 3 ink discount on it there. And then you do have to discard that many cards, but this deck kind of wants to do that. You see that top card on Joe's discard there is the Lilo, and you can play it from your discard, and then also you're just fueling out a Chernobog for, you know, free or 1 or 2 ink, and a lot of decks in the format cannot deal with a 9/9, right?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the 2/6 once again playing in with that Rapunzel synergy we were talking about. But against Ruby decks, this 2 strength is a deficit because you're dealing with Brawl, you're dealing with Big Sisu. But here in this match, Zach's going to have to put together a formidable team to take down this Tramp. And with the new set 7, we're seeing a lot of these Lady and the Tramp synergies. I think this deck plays both the low drop Lady and the Tramp as well as the high drop Lady and the Tramp.
Yep. Yeah, wow, you see 3 Lilos in Joe's discard, so no amount of he's got plenty of threats in the discard that he can play at the beginning of his turn if he wants to. But if the lore totals are accurate, Lucksack's already at 10 to Joe's 2. I mean, Joe can catch up pretty quick, but he's going to have to prevent Zach from getting to 20 himself beforehand.
Yeah, looking at the board, we did see Joe have 2 daisies to start off the game, and I would imagine he drew Zach a number of cards in that previous turn. We actually see him put 3 damage instead of questing for 5 onto that Prince character.
Yep.
So Joe has it in his head that he needs to control the board in a major way.
Yeah, it was actually Zach and I were talking about the deck Friday before this weekend's tournament, and we were looking at some of the card choices. And one of them was the Donald Duck Musketeer, the 3-drop bodyguard. And we were talking, it's like we didn't really like the stats on him for a 3-drop, especially in a Bell format. Just being a 2/3, it's like a 3-drop that's probably going to come into play exerted. It's just going to get banished by a Bell. But we were thinking about the curve, right? So you can have turn 1 1-drop, turn 2 2 more 1-drops, turn 3 Donald. And yes, the Bell just kind of does get to eat it for free. But what we thought about is the Bell's gonna banish it, right? And it's still gonna be around. And then one of your 1-drops is probably gonna be like a Daisy or an 04. And you can just run that into the Bell for 3 damage counters. And you're on turn 4 after that Donald play. And now you just get like a full value Rapunzel, you know, out of that with the 3 damage off the Bell. So I think he ended up keeping the card in the deck. It's kind of low power level, but I think with that line being available and just having another cheap bodyguard is worth it in an aggressive deck like this.
Yeah, and especially in these weird mirror matchups, it's important to take note of those heads-up plays like you were talking about. Putting 3 damage on your own character to then draw 3 cards is very big, and Zach just draws the extra character to make Piglet quest for 3 and close out that first game. We did see the Tramp on the previous turn add 5 strength to a character to be able to offset the board a little bit, but it was just a little too late. Yeah,
that new Tramp the card's really good. I'm a fan of that one. It's making your ladies quests for 1 more, the 1-drop version, and then just being like a pseudo removal with a lot of your guys having high willpower and low attack. This pumping up the attack to a pretty decent sized number. Most likely you're going to end up just getting a free banish. Another card that Zach was talking about this weekend was, or Lucksack rather, was adding the Piglet And it looks like Joe kind of got on that same bandwagon as well. So separate players from separate processes coming to the same conclusion probably means they're on to something.
Yeah, I think in this game, especially, the parallel thinking that goes into hyper aggro is pretty widespread. I don't think you have much wiggle room when it comes to your 60 cards that you're putting in this lemon lime hyper aggro, because you want the daisies, you want the piglets, you want the Donalds for the additional lore. And, the Lady and the Tramp synergy cards, like we were talked about, they're paying dividends for these players who are now 4-2 in this 7-round tournament, looking to claim their spot in the top 8.
Yeah, and I think the core of the deck is already pretty well positioned against most steel strategies, just because you've got 12 1-drops with 4 willpower. That's going to be tough for any steel deck to interact with. The piglets are going to probably be a little bit more weak against steel decks, but the deck also has Ursula, right? So you can play Ursula on 2, see what they're working with. If they don't have any removal, then you can go with the piglet. You can just ink the piglet against steel decks. But I like having piglet as like a hyper accelerated quester against non-steel decks to, especially in the mirror match. It's going to be an all-star in this matchup.
Yeah, and we were talking about those big bodies, and I think what actually, we came into the game a little late, but it did look like this new Prince card paved the way for Zach to get to 20. I mean, 0-5 for 2.
Yeah, that's interesting. The only thing I don't like about this card is it's not inkable. But yeah, I think this card could get its mileage in pretty much any matchup in the format. It might be a little weak against. It's worst case. It's gonna be real bad against like red blue. But red blue has kind of been on the downswing lately, so you're probably not gonna run into that. Now he's trying to. I don't know if he's playing a full set of these or not. But he does hold a whole lot of Rapunzel counters.
What I like about Zach's deck building choices, that's Lucksack here, his deck building choice has a good amount of one-ofs. And the important thing to note is if you draw the one-of in the situation you don't need it, you can just use this Tramp card to get it out of your hand and into the discard pile, and ideally fueling a Churn and Bog that'll close out the game.
Yeah, I like the Tramp card a lot. It ends up as kind of like enacting like a weird tutor of sorts. Like you don't really get to pick, but you're going to get a lot of options. You got like 5 guys in play and you play this. As long as you have, we figured this out. You got to keep 1 card in your hand. You play, if this is the last card you play on the board, you just draw X cards and discard all of them. So as long as you keep 1, you could draw 5, or draw 6, discard, down to 1. And that 1 card might be a Rapunzel or whatever, or the Chernabog that you need.
Yeah, it'll essentially be the best card in the top 6 cards of your library. So here we see a Merryweather inked for Joe, going into that Little John, another big body that has been showing up in the current meta.
Yeah, Merryweather just pairing nicely with it, with the Tramp is another effect like that. You got the Little John, you got all these 0-4s, just another way to let them attack in, and they're probably not going to end up getting traded in the early game, and then you get those early damage counters on them. And this deck has so many ways to get a few damage counters on one of your own guys right into turn 4 on curve. There's a lot of time I feel like other Rapunzel decks, Rapunzel's more of a mid to late game card, where this can just come down on curve and draw 2 or 3 cards pretty easily.
Yeah, Zach did a lot of thinking there on his first turn. He ultimately inked the big Tramp and let out with Daisy, the typically ideal 1-drop for this matchup. But as we were looking into on game 1, if Zach draws Joe too many cards and we see him inking the Rapunzel right there, he doesn't even need the Rapunzel. I'm just going to play Piglet, I'm going to quest, and yeah, I'll take a look at the top card of my deck.
Well, Rapunzel's kind of funny in the mirror match, right? Because neither side has high attack like on their opponent's turn. Mm-hmm. So like you're never going to probably get more than like 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky damage counters on your own guy, because everything has like 1 and 0 attack.
Right. And so we see this Piglet, which in these all character decks has just such an easy path to this and I'm the captain ability, which gives it 2 additional lore. Yeah,
it's going to be real solid. Zach would really well. Is that a piglet of his own? Yeah,
it is a piglet. Yeah.
I mean, they've got options, right? It's they're probably going to get 3. They'll probably get 3 lore out of it, right? And then if their opponent has the Merryweather or the Tramp, then they can pretty easily take it out. But if they don't, I mean, or here's a bodyguard out of Joe, so now Piglet's a real problem.
So a little foreshadowing here from what I see in Zach's hand. It looks like he opted to not quest with the Daisy. He did not challenge in because he has access to this Tramp card, which will let him trade favorably into his opponent's board. We could possibly see the Daisy trade into the Donald. Maybe it was a bad date and she just needs him off the board for the time being. She needs space. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Piglet trade in with Piglet.
Yeah, you may have to. It's that's something you really got to consider. Lucksack's at 0 lore, Joe's at 6. You're already behind in the race by quite a lot. So you may end up having to just trade in, and you're left with a Daisy and a Tramp, and you take out two of Joe's characters, and just leave him with 104 Little John. Daisy's kind of funny in questing in this matchup too, because it's always going to draw your opponent to their card. There's no missing on that one.
So we do see Ursula Deceiver going to the ink pile, which is a great utility card, but in this matchup is always going to be ink.
Yep.
And there it is. Just as we drew it up, Daisy will go into Donald. And let's see if Zach agrees. Yep.
Yeah, I think you've got to do that. Man, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of points in the game I don't want to quest with Daisy in this matchup.
Yeah.
You're just fueling especially when you're behind by 6 lore, you don't want to just keep throwing cards in Joe's hand.
Yeah, and what Zach has set up so wonderfully here is he now has 2 damage on that Daisy.
Yeah.
And if Joe just ignores it, maybe he's got a Tramp of his own to trade back. This Rapunzel is just gonna draw a couple cards for Zach and a 1-drop on turn 4 with a pass. That is not.
What is it? What does he have? Double Chernobog or something? Or it could be the other lady that costs 7. He only had 1 character in play at the time, so not getting much of a discount on it.
Yeah, so we do see that Rapunzel in the middle of Zach's hand. We'll see if that is the avenue he wants to go with.
Yeah, I would. I imagine that's going to be the play. Yep.
Yep. And like we were talking, Daisy is guaranteed to draw your opponent a card in this matchup because it's all characters. So the question for Zach now, I mean, he's gotten a good amount of board advantage, or he's got control of the board. When does he say, okay, I'm going to start questing, but you're too far behind for me to worry about it?
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, Joe's on, 4 or 5 ink, and when you saw just play a 1-drop, 2 cards in hand and pass, I kind of like this. Like, if I let you draw 2 extra cards, you're just going to get right back ahead of me. So I think I'll like waiting maybe a little bit longer. The Rapunzel will be able to start getting in pretty easily.
And here we see a card that a few players are opting into, which is Dale. Now, Dale is a way for you to put cards directly from the deck into the discard pile, fueling that Chernobog. Maybe you hit a Lilo to go in there. And it has the added effect of reducing the strength of a character on your opponent's side of the board by 3 until the next turn.
Yeah, I mean, that card, it's relevant in this matchup. It's actually it's got decent stats too. Nothing crazy for a 4-drop, but just in this matchup, a 3/4 is it's decent. It gets in there. Doesn't hit the threshold of the 4 willpower, and you got the Rapunzel over there. He'll probably start getting in being a 1/5. But yeah, I've gone back and forth on Dale. I think some number of them are good enough to go with your game plan. Like if you ever hit, if you have a Chernobog in hand already, you hit a Lilo. That's pretty good value.
Now I love what Zach is doing here. He's playing his 1-cost characters because that's the same as tapping ink for this Tramp. That's going to come down.
Yep, exactly.
Now he's got 2 cards in the hand. He's going to get a look at 6 more, and we'll see.
I saw another Rapunzel. Probably Really wanting to find a Chernobog here.
Interestingly enough, he has an invited to the ball in his hand. So
yeah, we talked about that card a bit this weekend. so Zach does actually end up having a couple non-character cards. And I mean that's when this card does kind of shine. I still don't think he actually likes it in the list. He was trying it out, but the problem is, the thing is, it only costs 2. It's basically always going to hit. You're only playing 2 in the deck. You'd have to hit the other one for you to miss. But you're always going to at least get 1 card. Usually 9 times out of 10, you're going to get 2. But there's just not a good point in the curve to do it, to play it. You don't want to take turn 2 off it.
Yeah, it does look like Zach is potentially keeping Chernobog Rapunzel.
I like that.
Which, if we do have enough characters, you just play the Chernobog.
Yeah. Well, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 on tap. You need 1 more. You need another ink or another character.
He has not inked for this turn.
Oh, no, wait. I'm counting characters in play. It's characters in the discard.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea how many characters are in the discard. But if he's got 8, he can play it.
So notably there we had the new 1-drop tramp, allowing Daisy to just take out Lil Jon.
I was talking to Zach earlier today, and he was like, Prince John is a nightmare for me.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was telling me, yes, Prince John does care when you discard. It is irrelevant.
Yeah, he's ability. Like, I cannot play Tramp into a Prince John. That is, that's not a thing.
So, very interestingly here, we see Joe attacking Dale in to take out a character. But the problem here is Zach can very easily challenge back with one of these daisies and use that Rapunzel in his hand to draw an additional 3 cards, furthering the gap between him and Joe.
Yeah, being able to churn through your deck like that and consistently find the big payoffs are Chernobog and Rapunzel. The deck just keeps going. It feels like just a one-sided whole new world sometimes.
Yeah, and I really like this new lady card because this is one of the first cards that we're seeing in these aggro colors that is card advantage.
Yep.
It doesn't say draw 2 cards, but it sort of says draw 2.
In this deck, yeah. Now I will say you're probably not going to curve shift this on turn 3 and get to draw 2 cards every time.
Right.
You could do that just to, it's a 4/4 the quest for 2. It's great stats. Most of the time, this is going to come down for, you could either just play it for the full 5 or do the discounted shift on, for 3 on turn 5 and still play another 1 or 2 drop. Or you could just get back to 1 drops and play them immediately, which would be a pretty insane turn 5.
Yeah, as soon as your opponent got through that double daisy, she's right back there ready for another date.
Yeah. And that's turn 5 inks, 6 lore worth of characters that all have 4 willpower. That's a lot to get through.
Yeah, and speaking of lore, Joe is at 8. He's got the piglet on board, which is threatening potentially 3. And Zach really has to navigate how to get himself out of this board state where he's behind on lore but up on characters.
Yeah, Zach still is yet to have a turn to where he feels like, okay, I'm going to go sideways and catch up. He's having to play the, reactive, the control deck. He's not yet the beatdown.
Yeah, it does seem like we have a couple of good options here on Zach's board. We do know he's got Rapunzel in hand, meaning whatever trade happens is going to result in an additional 3 cards going into his hand.
Yeah, he needs to get that Chernobog down. That will really help him catch up in the raid.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the trades result in that Chernobog coming down. And it does appear that a boosted Merryweather was the play here. So the additional pay on Merryweather is a +2 to attack?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Joe's board has been dealt with other than the piglet.
And there it is, the Chernobog.
Man, that's that one's sticking around.
Interestingly enough, and I guess it works out, the invited the ball staying in the discard pile making it slightly more efficient the next time.
Yeah, now Zach is ready to start gaining some lore. The Daisy finally got in there, and now it's 7-8. And I mean, Zach's got him on like a turn, 2-turn clock.
Yeah.
Joe's got one character in play.
Yeah, Zach actually has 14 lore in play. I think this piglet actually has to challenge the Rapunzel.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. It's a now turn clock.
Okay, taking the 2 lore off the table that way.
Yep. So now it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Why not?
Yeah, draw 3 cards. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, now Zach has got to the point in the game where he can just exert everything, quest out. There's no coming back, and that's kind of how you have to play this game, especially on the being on the draw.
Yeah, and I think just to break it down a little more, Zach played the draw extremely well.
Yep.
He built up his board. He used cards like the Tramp and Merryweather to find favorable exchanges, and really, we didn't see Zach quest until he could go from 0 to 20.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like 7. I've got 14 in play.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, 0, 7, 20.
I'm not gonna lie, this deck is sweet. This is one of the first aggro decks in Lorcana where I'm like, it seems very resilient. It has card advantage. It's not just like this glass cannon,
right,
uninkable 1/1 like extravaganza that quests for 2.
Right.
These cards have staying power. Then you have an actual end game. You have ways to get cards back. You've got Chernabog, Rapunzel to draw a bunch of cards, Lady to kind of dig through half your deck. You've got Lilos that are coming back from the discard. Like, it just hits on a lot of different angles that previous aggressive decks we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, and seeing Zach lay out some of the cards in his deck, probably just discussing build decisions with his opponent. He's got the Prince there. He's got Yzma, which is just another
yeah, he
looter.
was going back and forth on Yzma too. It may just be a necessary evil. He's probably not playing the full 4 anymore. The stats are bad, but I mean, sometimes you just need to loot. I mean, or now if you have a Lilo in hand, this card just says draw a card.
Right. And I think it's important to circle back to cards like the Prince, cards like Invited to the Ball, and maybe even a Chernabog in the wrong part of the game, an uninkable card. You can just get it out of your hand.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think that's another concession for Yzma being in the deck.
Yeah, one card we did see from the previous match from Joe was this Prince Philip card that it has ward, it quests for 2, and it's essentially going to quest for 2.
Like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. It is a guaranteed 2 lore though, outside of like a sweeper. But it's almost never gonna get to go for 2 more. And like,
right.
What matchups are you really wanting this for? I mean, unless I guess it trades with a bell and it can't get hit by a song.
Right.
So like, there's that. So it's got merit. I don't know if I like it in the list.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the bell has really shaped this meta coming into this weekend, where we see Little John, we see Nala, we see 4 is the number.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're not going to have 4 willpower, at least have 3 attacks so that at least the bell trades.
Yeah, Bell being this 3/3, 4/3 that can potentially cheat itself into play using cards like Popsicle, Fortisphere.
Yeah, I
the
think
like.
it's not. I feel like it's not as unfair in blue-red as fair of a deck blue-red is.
Yeah.
It's just the most egregious in blue-steel, because when you get to do it off a Popsicle or Fortisphere, there was no downside. You just played a free 3/3. You're not down a card. You just got to play this for 1 ink. When you have to banish a non-Popsicle or Fortisphere, it doesn't feel as bad. You know, you invested 2 cards on turn 1 to get a 3/3 that may or may not really affect the game. But when you just get to do it for free, pretty much every game, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. I find the the flavor text on this card ironic, helping her dad keep the flying debris to a minimum. Meanwhile, she's coming into the meta, causing maximum damage.
Blowing up stuff like, yeah.
She's not doing a great job.
No, it's just the worst job, dude. The biggest mess I've ever seen. Like, yeah, I'm talking with players this weekend. I was, the feeling really isn't like the deck's too good. I actually think I think it's got a decent skill ceiling for the deck too. Like I don't know, it's not super hard to play, but I've watched a lot of games people playing this weekend. It just falls apart. Like they didn't have Bell on turn 1. Oswald whiffed a few times. They didn't have a character to play on turn 3. And by then, this green-yellow deck's, got 7 characters in play, or there was a few Steel Song players here just curving out into 1/4 Vanessas and, Lawrence, things that aren't going to get taken out by Bell. And they're just run over Blue Steel, especially when they don't have the Bell start.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about the Sapphire Steel deck is that they just have printed so many cards that say my favorite word, free. We have Tamatoa, happy as a clam here, gets you 2 items, plays 1 for free. Scrooge is another card that, once again, you're getting all these items off of cards like Oswald, once again free.
Yeah.
And Scrooge comes in and for free. I always forget this card has a second line of text. The fact
you said it was a bigger Bell.
It's in play for free. That's good enough for me. And then I see people looking at the top font like, sweet.
Yeah, Blue just kind of has it all right now. They have acceleration, they have free spells, they've got removal if you want it, but you could just pair it with something like Steel or Red to get the removal aspect. But it's got the best card draw in the game, the best non-interactive lore gain and Lucky Dime. I mean, it's good. The color has it all,
Yeah, and I'm sure we will see some of these decks, some of these Sapphire Steel decks in the top 8, along with congratulations to Zach, who should be in the top 8, right? I think 5-2.
It'll be close, but he may be in.
We'll see how he has to handle these Bell openings if he has to run up into any of them. But yeah, I think Sapphire Steel is a deck that we will see refined. I've already seen people cutting even the Oswalds just to have less uninkables and more of a consistent ramp.
Yeah, there's some versions where it's also like they don't even go as big. They're just more like a kind of aggressive mid-range deck with Bell and items and flavor shim. But they're not playing Oswald. Some are not even playing Lucky Dime. They're just kind of like a Calhoun, Pete, maybe Doc, Smee sort of situation.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember this, but it sticks out in my mind. But the Lorcana card gallery app had Hiram listed as only drawing 1 card for a little bit, and everyone thought it was the impending nerf that was coming to the game.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was online like when that was going on. Everybody was like up in arms, and I was like, just ban it. Don't do. I was like, this is the worst case scenario.
Right.
Like, just ban it. Don't errata physical cards anymore. Like, we've already had the Bucky situation.
Yeah.
I think the Bucky situation was bad too. Just ban it.
Bucky, yeah. Well, Bucky was interesting because, like you said, it could have just been a ban, and it effectively was a ban.
Right. This is the worst. Like, it effectively was a ban, and now people have physical cards where the text on them isn't what the card does, and that's not. I don't think that's a good thing.
Do you know how you got the? I mean, I'm sure there's multiple ways to get them, but do you know how you got the errated Buckies at first?
They were, I think they were they doing them for weeklies for like the leagues?
They might have had extra for the leagues, but the very first was if you bought a box of the new set.
That's right.
So it was to get this errated card. You had
what a buy a box promo. That is insanity.
But yeah, so we've talked about the hyper aggro options for dealing with Sapphire Steel and Bell. But how do you think some of these other decks like Amber Steel are dealing with the other cards such as?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of Amber Steel yesterday, and it was it did all right. they're going the like Vanessa route. And I saw like Gaston and stuff like that. So like your turn one Cinderella is susceptible to Bell interaction if you're on the draw. So you could just forego that turn. But on turn 2, you can play something like Vanessa as a 1/4 protected. It can Zeus, whatever your blue steel opponent plays on that turn. So it ended up, I think we saw Amber Steel beat blue steel like twice on camera yesterday. It ended up being pretty good.
Yeah, Gaston, as you highlighted, is a card that seems to come into the meta when you need your Amber Steel deck to be more resilient. Like it needs to survive.
You need your Singer 5 needs to be there, and you need more Singer 5s, right? You got Aerial Spectacular Singer is obviously the better one, but I mean, if you've already got Whole New World and you just need a Singer 5 to stick, then having the Gaston as well.
Yeah, Aerial being susceptible, primarily to Brawl being the big difference. We see a lot of players coming in here expecting Sapphire Steel to be the top, but do you have any predictions to offset that in the top 8? What do you think will take it home this weekend?
I mean, I think if I think the green yellow deck could definitely get it done. There's a kid here playing. I think he's locked for top 8 playing green steel.
Okay.
With 2 main deck Find 'em Platinums. I like his list a lot.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the decks I would have considered playing into this weekend. I think everybody's mindset went to blue steel. They're not really prepared for like Hidden Cove Diablo and and Sad Beast, and there is a lot less red and brawls running around. So when it's just steel interaction, or song interaction even. You've got turn 2 Ursula. You've got Prince John. There's not a lot of sweepers in the format. So like these things are just going to stick around.
Right.
And then I think that deck actually can even be half decent against the green yellow deck because it plays muses. So like you just survive a bit. Maybe your Diablo can take out not a 1/4, but like a 1/2 or something, or sing Let the Storm Rage On. If you can get to turn 4, the muses just kind of starts going crazy on that deck. Muse literally bounces everything except like Dale and Chernobog.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we were talking about earlier, that new Tramp card. It costs 7. It's never really going to cost 7.
Yeah.
But it's so susceptible to Brawl, the big Sisu, Muses, Cloud Kicker if we ever see him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you got to be in a real tough spot to play it against a Prince John.
Yeah.
That's just not
and I do want to highlight one thing you were saying, which is as some people have these very strong paths in the meta, like Sapphire Steel, Amber Steel, like it closes in the walls and forces people to go a certain direction with their deck building. So we talked about the big bodies, but now we're talking about, as you said, the Ursulas coming in to counteract those songs. We're talking about, I believe there's Gantu, makes actions cost more. I think it's items.
Yeah.
As well?
Yeah, I can't remember. He's like a 2/4 cost 4 uninkable steel card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he makes the non-characters cost a lot.
Yeah, his biggest problem with him is he's a 4 cost non-inkable.
Right.
But yeah, I think he could find a spot too. Yeah, I think the blue steel deck is definitely warping the format, but I don't think it's going to be constricting too much. People just have to think outside the box a little bit, and I think that's how we got the birth of this green yellow Lady in the Tramp aggressive deck.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
We've never seen an aggressive deck with just a bunch of 0/4s, and it's good.
and I think the tech options are really important. You talked about Find 'em Platinum, 4 cost song, inkable. If it's not good in the matchup, put it in the inkwell.
Yep.
We're talking about, I had another example.
There was I really like the 1-drop green Pete, but you got to be an action heavy deck, and it's 1-drop 1/2 inkable quest for 1. Whenever you play a non-song action, you can blow up 1 item.
Zeus is the card I was thinking of. That's a card that we see go in and out of the meta, depending on the targets. But 5 is another important number. Tamatoa 1, or the little Tamatoa, however we want to call him.
New Tamatoa, I don't know. Baby Tamatoa.
5 willpower.
Yep.
Maui Shark.
Yep.
5 willpower. They just can't hang.
Yeah, brutal. There's plenty of options in the format to combat blue steel, or you can just play blue steel. The deck is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I respect both approaches. I think the innovators are a different breed. I myself would just want to sleeve up and let everyone else figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, I think we're gonna go to break for a little bit, and we will be coming back for the next round. Actually, we're gonna top 8's next, right?
Top 8 is next.
Yeah,
we'll
be back soon for top 8. So don't go anywhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter Burton Memorial. I am here with an incredibly talented young player, Derek, who we are going to see in the top 8. We're so excited. Congratulations, Derek.
Thank you.
Derek, can you tell me a little bit about the deck you're playing? I know we saw you on stream yesterday, but just remind those people who are watching at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm playing green steel, the deck that has the most high roll deck in the game. If you draw good, you can't lose. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I feel like a really talented player needs to be piloting green steel. Have you been playing green steel for a long time? Did you just start with this meta? What's going on?
I've been playing it a lot since set 4, so I've been playing it for 3 sets straight, and I've been really mastering the deck.
That's amazing. What changed about your deck with this most recent set?
Yeah, so a lot of people are going to blue, right? And they're playing Hero, so I went to Hefflumps and Woozles. It's a crazy card, but stopping the hero from questing and drawing cards is really good when you're playing a discard deck, so yeah, I went on that card.
That's amazing. So are you from the local Fort Worth area? Tell us about your LGS. Where do you play?
Yeah, I am from Fort Worth, and it's like a 10-minute drive, which is absolutely awesome. And my LGS is Sci-Fi Factory, so shout out Sci-Fi.
That's awesome. Is this your first year playing here at the Hunter Burton?
Yes, it's my first year. I'll definitely come back next year. It's a great tournament.
Well, you're definitely going to have to now that you're all the way in top 8. Who are you most excited to get to play against in top 8, and what deck are you most nervous for?
I really want to play against Zan. I think that'd be awesome, and I'm definitely most nervous for Purple Steel. That's one of our tougher matchups because of Pete. They can Pete playing Pete, and I can't really do much about it. But yeah, I'm really excited to play Zan if he makes top cut, which I think he probably will. Yeah, so I do want to play against him and win.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure you will take him down in the top 8. It is so lovely to meet you. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you again as the day goes on, as we see you play in the top 8. Congratulations, Derek.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.